Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantal Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Tonight, I'm super excited to be here with Alexis Wyatt. Alexis is a teacher, an author, and a mother who's going to be sharing tips and tricks on promoting self-love and self-worth, not just with ourselves, but also with children. So hello, Alexis. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, living the dream. And so tell us where you are joining us from today.
Okay, so I am currently in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. And I'm always kind of curious, like what's going on there, COVID related? Are you guys fully open? Like what's?
So it's kind of like a hot mess here. But so we're open, but we shouldn't be open. So like we're kind of in emergency mode. So we're open, but they're trying to figure out what they're going to do as far as masks, because they did allow our parents the opportunity when school started. So we started about almost a month ago, and they allowed our parents the opportunity to opt out of masks. Oh. So they gave them that, along with just strongly recommending that K through kindergarten through second grade wear masks. So that's a whole nother thing too. But a lot of teachers been sick. We've been having children sick as well.
Wow. And what grade do you teach?
Kindergarten.
Aw.
Yes.
That's awesome. And so I'm also a teacher. I do special ed, and I am out of the classroom now. I'm a state trainer supporting special ed teachers, but yeah, education is near and dear to my heart. So that is awesome. And kindergarten is one grade I never taught, and yeah, God bless you.
Well, yeah, this is my first year teaching kindergarten. I spent the majority of my teaching career teaching first grade. Then I went up to third grade. Well, I started second, then did first grade for a few years, then went up to third grade. Now I'm back down at kindergarten.
Oh, wow. Very nice. I think it's wonderful when teachers can have some different experiences and exposure. I think it just makes you a stronger teacher.
Definitely.
Well, good. Now that we know a little bit about that side of your life and kind of where you're at, like physically, location wise, share with us a little bit about your journey to create a life that you love.
Okay. So I want to start as a child, because that's kind of where I guess my passion probably birthed, but it wasn't developed yet. My parents, I had a very supportive family that loved on me and encouraged me. My mom was really encouraging, along with my granny. But going to school, kids were super mean. They were super mean, and I wasn't bullied, but kids point out some of your imperfections that you don't really know that are imperfections, and they kind of tweak it into being one. So my bottom lip, because it's way bigger than my top lip, kids used to talk about. So I started hating that. My nose, I started hating that. My skin complexion, I didn't hate my skin complexion. I just hated how people would identify me as. So I grew up not liking those things. I kind of felt cute, but not really. not really. But I'm saying all that to say, eventually I got to the point in my adulthood of sitting down, hold on, stop. Some of the decisions I made were centered around that lack of self-love. So it's cool when other people give it to you, but it's different when you give it to yourself. So I had to take some time. And I started going to church more. I started going to Bible study. I was not going to Bible study. I started going to Bible study, and actually just looking at some of the events and things that happened in my life that were traumatic or caused damage, and started there and started realizing and telling myself that I wasn't healed from certain things. that I thought I was just because the time passed, or I tried to lie to myself and say I was, and realizing like, hold on, you're the bomb. Hold on, you know you got a lot going on, and I just started living life like legit, like started living life. I'm like, you know what? I want to eat at this place. Let's go. And me and my close friend, that's from Chattanooga, we would just go to places and like just started traveling. And I think that's where my self-love started. So like I'm still on a journey, still on a journey of not even discovering it, but more so implementing it in like actions and interactions that I have with different people. Yeah, and I would definitely say with me being a mom, my self-love journey was on a pause. It was on pause. And my baby is 2. And I think I've never really said that out loud, but my self-love journey did pause once I had a baby. And I didn't think it would because like I was on the move and then I got pregnant and then everything slowed down and like I had to pour that love and pour everything into someone else. And a lot of times as moms and as parents, we kind of push ourselves on the back burner. So now I'm picking back up where I left off before I had my son. So that's where I am on my journey, trying to implement these things with the children that I work with, along with the children I come in contact with early on, so it could be strong. So like when they do grow up and have kids, families, all those things, meet different people, they're able to, they're able to cope a little bit better, and it doesn't just have to stop, but they understand it so much that it just flows like the river.
That is awesome. If you don't mind me asking, like, how old were you when you feel like you started building that confidence and really kind of kicking off your journey?
I would say, I think I was like 24.
Okay.
Maybe like 20, 23, 24. It was actually shortly after I moved here. Yeah, like 23, 24, in that age range. Like, because before that I said, like, because people so often talk about, say affirmations, say these things, and they don't really discuss the process. Like, it's a mental thing. And just because you're telling yourself affirmations doesn't mean you love yourself. That does not mean you value yourself, you value your worth, and really know what you bring to the table, what you bring in other people's lives. I think I kind of strayed away because like my teenage years going into like when I finally became an adult, those years, like those few years in college, I kept having older people come to me telling me like, oh, you're great. You're doing all these things, like you have something special in you. And I'm just like, not all, like I didn't believe it. And I'm just like, okay, let me stray away from that. That scared me. The thought of that like scared me. So I was like, no. So like I kept pushing it back, doing other things. And now, when I started that journey, I'm just like, wait, I kind of see what they're talking about. So yeah.
So you were able to kind of fight through those initial limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Not funny that so often people on the outside will see it in us before we can see it. Yeah. And then we have to acknowledge it and then
actually do something about it. Like acknowledge it and actually, okay, I'm gonna step into who I am. I'm gonna stop shying away or, imposter syndrome, thinking about those things, because those things are real. You're like, wait, I don't belong here. Wait, I don't fit in this. I'm not what you guys think I am. I don't know what you see. This is not what I see. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you mentioned it's, a process and it's a journey. And so what tips do you have for people that are maybe already started on the journey, or maybe just hearing this and really resonating with them and they're like, where do I start?
Well, my biggest thing, I think, because each person is different, I think what would help someone the most, the first step is just acknowledging their trauma, acknowledging the things that they may feel like damages them, right? Makes them baggage or unworthy. Because really, self-love, the thing that interferes with self-love is like you feeling like you're unworthy, you're not good enough. Not seeing who you truly are, the beauty within yourself. I would say and it's hard pulling back those band-aids and looking at those wounds and saying, this hurts still, right? Like, I put a band-aid over it, but it hurts still, and figuring out what works for you, whether it's therapy, whether it's church, whether, you know, because some people just go to their friends and they vent to the same friends, and, you know, those friends are trying their best, but going to somebody who has been trained, finding a coach, finding a mentor, somebody who has been trained and they know how to help you, because they may have suggestions and things that your friends don't have, that your mom doesn't have. Because sometimes it takes a different person who's on the outside sometimes looking in. So I think that would be like the first very step. Because like I said, with me, I started going to Bible study. And it just so happened, and this is like super personal, but whatever. It so happened, the particular church that I attend, the pastor at the time, so if he's watching this, hey, I'm gonna shout you out. The pastor at the time, he actually had, and he dedicated the entire month of October to domestic violence. And that was like, whoa, you know, it opened up some wounds and things that I did not heal from. And like, I had to face myself in the mirror and be like, I'm not okay. And it's okay that I'm not okay. And what happened was not okay. So yeah, like looking at those traumas and having somebody, again, from the outside, because my pastor didn't know at the time that's what I was going through. He barely even knew me, like barely even knew me at the time. But like somebody on the outside forcing you to look inward, forcing you to like try and be better than what you think you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And those relationships are different. Like, it's good, and you can go to your mom and your friends and things, but that relationship is different, and the response is going to be different, and the results you get from that response are going to be different. So when you truly are ready to make some progress, then yeah, it's about finding that place to plug in. That's really going to help you. That's amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. And then, so you touched on affirmations and kind of plugging in somewhere and getting some outside feedback. And,
yes.
Yeah. What other types of tips have you found helpful?
After doing that, doing things, I'm not even gonna just say setting boundaries. I think starting to be aware that being this whole idea of selfishness is not even really it's not even a negative thing, but it should be looked at sometimes being positive. Like, too much of anything is, you know, not good for us. But like being able to limit things like selfishness, like being able to tell other people no, the art of no is like a true thing. Being able to tell people no, because that's another part of your self-love journey. In order for you to pour into yourself, you can't keep pouring into everybody else all the time, you know. And then because you start pouring so much, because that's how I was as a person. Oh, I pour into this person, pour into that person. Then I'm empty and I'm still pouring. So now I'm like stressed out, tired, because I'm still pouring. So learning how to pour into yourself. Let me fill myself up, and then I can fill others up. Even being a server, and a servant, like, you know, we serve people, we work with people, we love on people, but we weren't created like whatever people believe in. We were not created just to serve. Like, that was not our only thing. Like, and we should be served too. Like, if you're always serving, somebody should be serving you. You should do things that you like, not just things that, you know, the kids like, and just your husband or your friends, your mama, your dad, like, but things that you like, which is another step to this whole self-love journey. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I take a bath, you know, and that might not be what everybody likes. Like, some people want to read a book, right? So like, that's relaxing to them. Some people just want to sit outside. I think we downplay self-love, not self-love, the whole thing of self-care. Or we just think, when we think of self-care, it's like, oh, if you could have a day of self-care, what would you do? Most people say, oh, I'll go to the spa, go this and that. You know, sometimes it's, you know what, I need to read because I haven't read in a while. I need to just eat because I haven't ate a great meal in a while. I need to spend some money on me. You could do things like flowers and things, but like, do something that you like. would be another thing. Like, and of course, I do believe in affirmations, but those things have to be solid before we do the affirmations. So like with affirming ourselves, telling ourselves that and believing it, right? So not just focusing on reassurance, but actually saying those things to yourself and making yourself believe it, making yourself accountable for those things. Like if you are saying you are a strong person, make yourself accountable. Like hold yourself up to that standard. Not saying you have to be strong all the time, but hold yourself up to those things that we repeat, because some of us are just repeating things and we don't believe it. We're not moving in the and I'm saying that to myself, because like I said, I'm still on the journey, and it's actually easier for me to pour into other people than myself. So like that's one thing I'm working on my on this part of my journey, is like saying the things and actually meaning it and actually holding myself accountable for those things.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, affirmations can be so powerful, but yeah, if you say something and then you're arguing with yourself about it and you don't believe it, then you're just in a lot of ways first reinforcing that story that's no longer serving you. Awesome. And then let's talk a little bit about, like you mentioned, the limiting beliefs in the beginning. And so that brings up feelings of fear. And so what recommendations do you have around that?
Okay, so that's one thing I've been struggling with as well. Is this whole idea of fear, because on one side I have people who say, you know, you shouldn't have a spirit of fear. Then on the other side, I have, and that's my son. On the other side, one side I have people who say you shouldn't have the spirit of fear, right? Spirit of fear wasn't put in you. On the other side, I'm just like, it's an emotion that's triggered by the brain. It's a real emotion that's triggered by the brain. Your brain wants to be safe. Typically, what strikes fear are things that are new and foreign to us. That are new, foreign, bigger, better, things that we've never seen. So I think, me personally, I feel like fear is okay. You just have to do things in fear. You have to push through and push past fear. Like do it afraid. And someone told me that years upon years ago, right? I told her about my dreams and she was like, you can do it. And I was like, okay. I was like, but I'm like, my real dreams like scare me, right? And she's like, they should scare you. If they're not scaring you, they're not big enough. And I'm just like, okay. And it didn't really mean, it meant something, but I'm just like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm afraid. I'm not doing it. Run. Right. That was my thing. Like, because like with my brain, because we have to retrain our brains, because our brains really want to run. The moment we are fearful and afraid, it wants to run and go in the opposite direction. It does not want to put work in. It does not want to try. It wants to run and flee. So retraining your brain and letting your brain know it's okay. Like, this is okay. We're going to try it. If this doesn't work, then we run, right? We're going to try it. If it doesn't work, then we run, and try something else instead of just running. So I think it's really telling yourself, okay, I'm afraid, but just do it. Just send an email. Just text the person. Just call. Just show up, right? And some of us need baby steps. Like with me, I realized with my brain, I had to trick my brain a lot of times, and like I'm actually being very successful at tricking my brain. I like to think so, because I procrastinate on certain things that bring fear. I procrastinate, so I start tricking my brain on certain things. I would say like, okay, this is due, or I don't have to do this meeting until Friday. Or I don't have to, prepare this until Friday. And I might have to prepare it like Sunday or Monday. But at least I know I'm tricking my brain like, okay. Or I did that. And then the other thing that works for me is breaking things into breaking these obstacles and challenges into smaller parts. That's again, you're tricking your brain because it seems like it's not as, big as, oh, I'm going to meet somebody who, meet a millionaire or something like that. I'm going to go here. It's going to be this millionaire. whatever, right? You might trick your brain and just say, I'm just gonna go, right? I'm not gonna talk to anybody. That's okay, because that's your step. That's the step that you need to take. Or you're like, you know what? I'm gonna just add this person. I'm not gonna message them. I'm not gonna watch any. I'm gonna just add them. Then the next step, okay, I added them. Now I'm going to comment on one of their videos. All right, you comment on their video. All right, I'm gonna do it 5 more times. Then the next step, all right, I'm gonna message them. So like taking those baby steps as well. How you can trick your brain into thinking that you're not doing what you really were destined to do or really should be doing.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but the day I had to like push publish to like get the book out there in the world, like I thought I was about to throw up. I was like, what did I just do? Like, take it back. It was so terrifying. And had I started out imagining I'm going to write this book and I'm going to put it out in the world. And yes, you kind of know that, but yeah, just taking it one little step at a time, and then you have a book, and then it's out there in the world, and then all these doors open to you. And it's amazing what writing a book can do, but it's also very terrifying, as I'm sure.
Yeah, it really is. And see, with me, I wasn't even afraid to push publish. I was afraid to announce it. So like and no one knows this, but I literally pushed publish, and I published my book probably a week before I even told anybody.
Oh wow.
I didn't tell anyone. And I published it like, and I checked multiple times. I'm like, okay, it's up, it's ready. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. No, I'm not gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do it Friday. I'm gonna do it Friday. I'm gonna do it this day. You know what? I'm gonna do it a week from today. Like I had to, and I finally was like, you know what? Let me start typing up like a little intro so everybody knows. Matter of fact, let me make a video. Right? So like, and then I made so many videos because it was just that fear. It was that fear of something new, something different. And not just that, I think our fear comes along with people's perception and how we think they're going to perceive our gifts and our talents. Are they going to think it's good? Is it good enough for people to, talk about? Or is it going to be a flop? Everybody's going to be like, or are people going to say, oh yeah, you wrote a book, I'm so happy, and then not buy it. So it was all those emotions going through.
Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah, it's in that example that I know we both share. That's why I used it. But like for anybody listening, maybe writing a book isn't something in your dream, but you can still take this advice. And maybe seeing the two of us talk about, we did it, we pushed through, maybe that will inspire you, and maybe not that becomes part of your dream. I don't know.
Right. I definitely agree.
Yeah. So what other, I totally want to go into your book, and it's kind of a good segue, but I also want to make sure that all your tips and processes that we got to all of those.
Okay, what other ones? Oh, one more thing. One more thing. Seeing it. So you seeing not just affirmations, you seeing what you want to do, what you want to be, writing it down in multiple places. So you're constantly like putting it out in the atmosphere, writing it down, telling yourself, I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough. Okay, I'm gonna write it on my refrigerator. I'm gonna write it on my mirror. I'm gonna put it on the door. So like you're constantly seeing it, because sometimes it's hard to just remember. Sometimes it's hard to just pick up the book and do it. But like writing those ones down that you know for sure you need those gentle reminders. You know for sure this is going to help you on your self-love journey. Whether it's you saying, I am not what happened to me. I am not my condition. I am not depression. I am not anxiety. I am not worthless, right? Because a lot of times we say, I am this, I am that, right? But we shy away from it. We don't want to go head on with those things that we think we are. And that's something deep. But thinking about that, telling yourself, I am not worthless. Writing it everywhere, putting it everywhere, because you may need that. you may, whatever you went through, whatever traumatic things you've been through, hearing that word, I am not worthless. Like, that's doing something to me right now. Like, just, because life happens, and sometimes what happens to us, we become it unintentionally, but we have to break those trauma chains. I keep saying trauma chains. Those trauma chains that sometimes bound us.
Yeah. That really being aware of, I think that's like a huge step. Like, if you don't know that saying, like you were using, I'm worthless, so by switching that, but first you have to acknowledge that that's an automated thought in your brain, that you need to do some things to rewire that neural network. Or you can choose to be stuck and keep that story, but if it's no longer serving you, what are you going to do different? Yeah. Awesome. Any other, these are all just such fabulous tips, and they're aligning with things that I tell my audience all the time. And so I think that's great that they can hear the same type of things, but in somebody else's voice and somebody else's perspective. And because maybe, the way they've heard it before, they weren't ready for it, or it just didn't say it in a way that made sense or resonated. So I love it. So anything else before we do kind of dive into your book? Because I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing.
I think that's it. That's like the big ones. I know I probably get off of this and like, oh, I forgot to say this, but yeah, I think that's it as far as the big ones.
Awesome. Those are all excellent ones. And just like you said, really starting small, and it would be overwhelming to anybody's brain to be like, here's 100 things that you need to go do tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, hold on. That's intimidating. No, thanks. I shut down.
Yeah, and it really is. Our brains do not want to be stressed out. They do not.
Awesome. Okay, so the title of your book is 31 Affirmations to a Brown Child. I think just the whole title encompasses so much. And so what kind of brought you to wanting to write a book for?
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things that was just an idea. And it was, I guess it's like actually sitting down thinking about it was a combination of like just life, because I used to write on Facebook, right? Okay, so a lot of people who knew me in college and before college, really my college years, I used to walk around campus smiling, right? I used to walk really fast, but I used to walk around campus smiling. And I had several people tell me, like, when I see you, I'm like, oh, let me get myself together. Like, she's always smiling, she's always happy. So I was always considered the happy girl until recently. Until recently, because now I'm just like, sometimes I'm like this, even though I'm happy, right? People have to see me. But yeah, like I used to they'll see me smile. And then I used to also post on Facebook. I used to post on Facebook just like encouraging words, affirmations. Didn't know they were called affirmations then. But my aunt had said, it was over a year ago, she had told me, it was more than a year ago. She told me, like, where she texted me, was like, where are you getting these like words from, like these little sayings? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you like getting them from places? I'm like, no, my head. And she's just like, you need to write a book about that. And of course, me being in the state that I was then, what did I do? Push it off. And I was like, no. I was like, write a book? You're crazy. Who's gonna write a book? And I did not. I wrote off what she said to me at that moment and did not go back. Did not go back. Did not revisit it. Then I say, you know what? Maybe I should. I'm just like, no, I just write it for people. I just want to encourage people or whatever, and that's it. And then I started teaching. So like in the midst of this, I was teaching, and I started implementing these things in my classroom, like telling my kids certain things, affirmations. Again, I didn't know it was affirmations at the time. reaffirming my kids and telling them, like, I had first graders, and I realized how much like they needed me to reassure them of like everything, right? They needed my approval for things that weren't even grades, right? They write one thing and they needed me to say that's beautiful for them to feel like it's beautiful. And I started telling them, like, you know what I want you to do when you come up? I'm like, I started out, because it was funny because it was kind of taboo because I was working with first grade. Because, you know, normally when they're young, everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's good. It's a good job. I started telling them, like, don't show Miss Wyatt your work. I don't want to see your work. If you want to show somebody your work, I want you to look at your work and say, this is beautiful. This is awesome. I did a great job at writing this. I'm like, I want you to tell yourself that. And I used to tell them, and they would keep coming up to me, and I'm like, go look at your work. I'm like, if you think that's your best work, go tell yourself that's your best work. Tell yourself that. And I had to keep training them to do that until they was like, oh, Miss Wyatt, I looked this over so many times, like, it's my best work. Can I show somebody else? Like, and and they would show each other, because I started telling them to show each other, like, show each other what y'all did, encourage each other, which I think is important to train children and teach children how to love themselves, love what they do, and love each other. And I think as parents, adults, we don't think about us being the reason why our kids need so much reassurance. We don't think about that because we're just loving them. We're just loving them. We're just telling, oh, good job. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love it. Right. Even if you don't love it, you're telling them, oh, I love it. Right. And I realized how hurtful it is to some of these children, because when you don't tell them it's beautiful, their world is crushed. Right. Versus them having so much love for what they do and what they accomplish, that even if I said, not my favorite, right? Even though I didn't say that to them, but it was like, what is that supposed to be, right? But they love it so much that they're just excited. Like they're excited to, regardless of what I say. So that was like another huge part of it. And then the last two parts were, I had an encounter with a sweet baby girl, in the cafeteria, and she was like crying. She was like crying so hard. And this was in the morning, during breakfast time. And I was just like, and it was unusual for her. She was in kindergarten at the time. It was unusual for her. And I was like, hey, what's wrong? And she was like, she wouldn't talk at first. And then she looked and seen who I was. So she was like, I'm ugly, right? And she whispered it to me. And I was like, you're what? She was like, I'm ugly. And I was like, why would you say that? And she's like, look at my hair. And it was like the first time she wore her natural hair. And I was just like, your hair is beautiful. Like, and then I thought, like, it clicked then, but I didn't act on it. It clicked then because I was just like, our children really don't love how they are. Like, and they need to love how they are. Like, it's okay to get hair, add hair, take hair out, dye your hair, but you have to love how you look. Like, it's okay. Like, you have to love how you look, and you have to look in the mirror and know that because that self-love and self-worth starts as a child. And a lot of us don't know it, don't realize it. It starts as a child, and no one wants their daughter or their son feeling worthless or feeling ugly or feeling, she was in kindergarten and she felt that way because it was the first time she wore her real hair to school. So I was just like, wow. And then the whole thing with George Floyd, it pulled me back to that moment with that little girl. It pulled me back to those moments in the classroom where I was like, I want all the children that I work with, and I did work in a high, the demographics were, it was higher, I forgot, it was majority Black, Latino, and then white. And I'm like, I want my kids to see themselves. Because I know growing up, I didn't see myself. I didn't see that in books, like barely in any books. But I want them to see themselves. I wanted them to know that they are perfect just the way they are. And the reason why I called it brown child instead of black child, which I know some people ask, some people ask me that instead of black child, is because I wanted kids with any darker complexion, regardless whether they were black, Latino, from the Middle East, wherever they were from. I wanted them to be able to connect to certain things, because I know all over the world, skin color and hair types, all those things are looked at a certain way. Like, you know, the lighter your skin, you might be considered more rich, or, you know, the darker your skin in certain places, type of thing. So like, I wanted those children to feel like, okay, yeah, this is a book for me. Like, this is a book for me. This is a book where I made sure I included children in my book with darker complexions. I made sure I included children in my book with lighter complexions. I made sure that I included in my book skin color doesn't matter. I made sure that I included about hair textures, for those reasons, because I wanted them to look in the mirror, and regardless of how your hair grows out your head, it's beautiful. You just have to learn how to work with it. You know, like we gotta work with what we got, right? And we can make anything look good, but we have to work with what we got. So those were my biggest inspirations behind why I created this first book.
I love that you added this first book. So what are your visions for future books?
Well, I kind of been like on this like windy road, right? Because you get so much feedback, and people ask you for certain things like, oh, you should do an audio, which I'm still considering doing an audio book. Have not fully pursued it. For anybody that's still hanging on to me doing an audio book, have not fully pursued it. Have discussed it with someone, which it probably will happen, but it will not happen this year. I want to do a series, but a very short series, of 31 affirmations. So my next book will be published very soon. I pushed back the published date. I know some people was holding on to my published date. Sorry about that. I took the summer off, which it was needed. That self-love, self-worth, it was needed. And my next book it's another affirmations book, but it's actually for people who suffer from unique conditions and disorders like autism. And the reason why I called it unique, because everybody doesn't go through it. And it's like so many different forms of autism, so many different forms of cancer, things like lupus, and all. It's an array. It's like a few that I'm trying to include on the book cover, but those are just a few for me to name on the spot. Things like MS, and yeah, I have some of them next to me, some of them I don't. But yeah, I wanted them to feel, depression. Depression was a big one as well. And with this book, it hits a little different. It hits a little different because some of the disorders and things are things that my family members are going through. Some very close family members. And one of the disorders, or really it's a condition, is something that I'm going through that I've never like publicly said, but and a lot of people don't know about it, and they've never even heard of it. But yeah, so like that's the thing, because I know when you're sick or you're going through some of these medical conditions that you feel really low. And I'm in some support groups, at least for the condition that I'm going through. And I see I don't know, it like got super bright in here, but my light didn't change. I don't know. But yeah, that's super weird. I have a condition and I'm in a support group for it, and I didn't realize how low people felt with this condition that I have. And just thinking about other people like my cousin, who's gone through one of the things I mentioned today, and it's something she suffers from, and thinking about what do they need to hear. at those moments that they feel low? What do I feel like I need to hear at the moments I feel low? So like there's different things, different affirmations, and it's not fully colored like the first one, because I wanted it to be aimed more so to young adults, maybe teens. Some of the ideas are a little complex, but it's teens that go through a lot of these things. Young adults, and I wanted it to be like, because my book 31 Affirmations to a Brown Child is a little more larger. I wanted it to be a little more smaller, where it could fit in a purse. It could fit like in your glove department. It could fit, because like I feel like sometimes when you come out of that doctor's office, you need to read it. Sometimes you're sitting in that doctor's office, you need to read it. Sometimes when you're in pain in the middle of the night, you need to read it. Or you may look at yourself in the mirror and you do not feel like you look the same or you are the same. Because physical features change. Your body hurts, right? Some of these disorders, take over your mind. You feel like you're not in control. So I felt like one of the things I want to make sure I did before I end my little series, because it's going to be real small. Before I end the series, I want to target that audience. Because they need to hear, like I said, it's a difference. And with this book, I included you and I statements. And I had one of my friends, he's like one of my sounding board people. And he was just like, you need to either put all I or all you. And I had to tell him I want both. And it was intentional that I have both, because sometimes when you're feeling so down and out, I statements don't work. You need to hear something from somebody else. That's when those you statements come in. It's one thing if you're like, oh yeah, I'm a good mom, or I'm a good teacher, right? If someone asks you like, oh, I'm pretty sure you're a good teacher, you're like, yeah, I'm a good teacher. But versus a child or a parent saying, she's a good teacher, you are a good teacher. It's different. It's power in our words, and it's different in you. It's a difference in you and I. So I want to make sure I included both. Like I wanted that to be a thing, because I know a lot of times we focus on telling people to say I statements, right? But when you're down and out, you don't feel like you're worth it. You can repeat the words all day long. It just feels better when you're down and out, when somebody else tells you, you are this, you are special, you are different, you are beautiful. Like you need somebody else sometimes pouring into you. That when we come back to the the self-love and how we treat ourselves, you need someone pouring into you. So like this was my way of pouring into other people who feel like they're alone. And you could, and I might do an audio book for this next one, more so than 31 affirmations. I still want to do it for 31 affirmations to a brown child, but now that I'm thinking about it, I may need to do that for this next book. So yeah, so that's my next project. And then I also want to come out with another children's book, but I'm probably going to push that back to the beginning of next year, if not December. No, I'm gonna push it back to the beginning of next year, give myself more time. I wrote the book, but I decided to make changes, and the book is gonna be about my son, and some of the things that he does, but through a toddler's point of view. So it's like, so it's like a spin. And nobody steal my idea, but it's through a toddler's point of view. So you know how we see kids doing crazy things. But then it's like them telling us why, type of thing, like them showing us what they're doing. So like we, of course, we see it a certain way, but then he'll be showing us what he's doing and it makes sense to them. Or like looking through a child's eye. I don't know if you ever done, you probably have as a teacher. Sometimes like our kids do certain things and then we're like, wait, why did you do this? Or then then they explain it to you like, oh, so you seen it, and you have to look in their eyes and their perception of the event.
What's your son's name?
Bentley.
Hi, Bentley. I always tell people, we live in the real world. This is live. This is,
yeah.
here we are. No big deal.
Listen, and yeah, he was in the back, but I think he wants some love.
Oh, sure. Well, I know that, so we do have a comment in the live chat that said people like me. So people are already very excited for the second book. I dropped the link for the first book that is available now on Amazon. But how can people connect with you and follow you so that they know when these other books come out?
I always tell people Instagram. I am on Facebook. Okay. I am on Facebook. The only problem with Facebook, and this is my disclaimer, because I do not have a business page on Facebook. I was going to do a business page and I still might, but I have not done that yet. I just transferred my personal page into my all about affirmation world. So I'm Alexis Wyatt on Facebook, but never go to Alexis Wyatt on Facebook for any updates, only because I get tagged in a lot of different events. I get tagged in a lot of promotional things, and silly videos. And sometimes I try to filter out a lot of it, but I also use my page, my Facebook page, for uplifting people, promotional things, supporting businesses. So you might see a lot of posts for me supporting other people's businesses on Facebook. So follow me on Instagram at the Affirmation Mommy. The Affirmation Mommy, I only do my posts typically on things I have going on. And of course it's set up different than Facebook. So I don't have as much, I just share my things on my story and just leave it at that. So the Affirmation Mommy, for updates, you can visit my website, drop your email. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm not opposed to people follow me on Facebook. My website is www.growingminds.com, or you can email me at growing minds academy LLC at Gmail.
Okay. And I'm putting all this in the live chat, but if you're watching this, it's also going to be in the show notes of the podcast and all those things. And so your Instagram is linked. I didn't link your Facebook yet, but I'll get to that after we wrap up. But yes, this has just been amazing. You're doing such inspiring things. So definitely everybody go connect with Alexis, check out her first book, follow her on Instagram. I know I just did. And definitely keep alert for future updates, because I can tell you're doing amazing things and you're just going to keep doing it. So I love it. Final thing, I like to ask all my guests if you have a daily non-negotiable.
No, I do not. I'm just like, I'm more free flowing, and I realize my life is better that way. I just typically start my day, and I'm an overthinker too. So I typically start my day with telling myself the things that I have to do, but it's never the same thing every day. So like today, I'm like, okay, I have to do some things for my book. I have to do, but it's never the same thing every day, nor do I have a certain amount of things that I say, oh, I have to do. Nope, and my life is just easier. But I know some people need to put that non-negotiable, but nope, I steal a little piece of the day for myself, however I can, whether it's me spending some time on my phone, looking at random videos on TikTok, or if I'm watching the TV with my son, like I do something that I enjoy every day, or I try to. Some days I'm just too busy to, but I try to be intentional about that. Now that my son is 2, which you need that with 2-year-olds. You need that with boys, and you need that with 2-year-olds for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes, I can't imagine.
Yes.
I'm sure you're very, very busy. And then to be also focusing on getting back to that self-love and self-care and being, an amazing mommy, an amazing teacher, and then producing books, going on podcasts and sharing your message. It's very awesome. I feel very honored to have gotten to connect with you this evening.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.